There comes a time in every life when the path grows quiet, when the noise of ambition, the striving of the ego, the demands of the world begin to dissolve into silence. It is in that silence that you begin to sense faintly at first, like a whisper behind the wind, that there is something more. Not more to get, not more to become, but more to remember, something deeper, something older than time, a presence that calls not to your mind but to your soul. And that presence speaks without sound. The universe has a bigger plan for you. You may not see it yet. You may be standing in the rubble of what you thought should have worked. You may be grieving dreams that seemed divinely inspired but ended in confusion. You may be clinging to what's familiar simply because you cannot yet feel what's coming. And that is okay. The caterpillar cannot imagine flight. The seed cannot predict the tree. But within both lies the divine architecture of becoming, not through effort, but through surrender. Not through control, but through trust. Life does not unfold according to our plans. It unfolds according to our expansion. The universe, in its infinite wisdom, is not interested in your comfort. It is devoted to your awakening. It does not conspire to make your path easy. It conspires to make your spirit grow wing. What looks like delay is often divine preparation. What feels like loss is often sacred realignment. What appears to be falling apart is often simply falling into place, but in a way the mind cannot yet comprehend. Because the mind lives in time, but your soul lives in truth. And truth is never rushed. It blooms like a lotus from the mud in stillness. So when you feel uncertain, do not rush to fill the space. Do not race to fix, to understand, to wrap it all in explanation. Sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is to let life remain a mystery a little longer, to allow the sacred unknown to work its quiet magic without interference. The ego resists the unknown, but the soul knows the unknown is holy ground. You are not being punished. You are being positioned. You are not being abandoned. You are being recalibrated. And every detour, every delay, every unexpected twist is not a deviation from the path. It is the path. You are not lost. You are being rerouted, not by accident, but by intelligence. The same intelligence that orchestrates galaxies without collision is orchestrating your life with precision. You may not have chosen the pain, but the pain may be choosing you for something greater, for strength, for wisdom, for empathy, for depth. And so often, the very wound that felt like it would break you becomes the doorway through which the light enters your life. Rumi spoke of it when he said, "The wound is where the light enters you." Not because pain is noble, but because pain opens. And in that opening, the soul can speak. You do not have to pretend to be okay. You do not have to know the answers. All you have to do is stay open. Stay willing. Let the tears fall if they must. Let the old fall away if it must. Let your identity dissolve if it must. The oak does not mourn the loss of its acorn shell. It surrenders to the becoming, and so must you. The universe has a bigger plan, not one that fits into your limited expectations, but one that expands you beyond anything you could have imagined. And the only thing it asks of you is trust. Not blind belief, but deep knowing. Knowing that you are not alone. Knowing that even now, especially now, you are being guided by something vast and wise and eternal. It does not require your understanding. Only your alignment. Alignment is not something you achieve. It is something you allow. It is returning to that sacred space within where the mind quiets, the breath deepens, and the truth becomes audible again. That space is always with you, beneath the noise, beneath the fear, beneath the plans and the projections. That space is where the bigger plan lives. The ego will panic when the map disappears. The soul will rejoice because now you are being led by the compass. And the compass does not give you a 5-year plan. It gives you one step, one breath, one moment of clarity that says, this way. And when you follow it, not with fear, but with faith, you discover that life is not a straight line, it is a sacred spiral. Every loop, every return, every seeming setback brings you deeper into your essence. You do not have to know what's coming to be at peace. You only have to know who you are. And who you are is not this role you've played, not this name you answer to, not this image you've curated for acceptance. Who you are is the awareness that sees it all, the stillness behind the story, the light behind the eyes. And when you remember this not with your mind but with your being, the chaos loses its grip. Because you realize that nothing real can ever be lost. Nothing eternal can ever be threatened. And the parts of your life that are crumbling, perhaps they were never real to begin with. Perhaps they were scaffolding. Temporary structures built to protect the sacred space that is now ready to emerge. You are not being destroyed. You are being unveiled. You are not breaking down. You are breaking open. And what is being born from this opening is not a better version of who you were, but the truer essence of who you've always been. There is a wisdom in the waiting, a purpose in the pause, a blessing in the breakdown. But only if you are willing to see with the eyes of the soul, the eyes that know that life is never out of order. It is only out of alignment with our expectations. And it is the loosening of those expectations that makes room for miracles. You were never meant to walk a path of control. You were meant to walk a path of surrender. Not to fate, but to the higher plan, to the inner knowing, to the presence that has never once left you, even in your darkest nights, even when you doubted it most. There is a rhythm to your life, like a tide. And just because the tide is out does not mean the sea has disappeared. Trust its return. Trust the unseen. Trust the deeper intelligence that speaks not in words, but in signs, in nudges, in serendipities that are too precise to be coincidence. That is the universe whispering, I am here, and I am not finished with you yet. You may think the best has passed. You may think your chance is gone, but the universe has no clocks. It moves not on human time, but on divine timing. And divine timing is never late. It arrives when you are ready to receive, not when you are desperate to grasp. So be still, be soft, be open. This is not the end. It is the holy beginning, a new becoming. And the plan, the bigger plan, is unfolding right now through your tears, through your quiet moments, through your letting go. You do not need to know how it all ends. You only need to trust the hand that is guiding you. And that hand is not outside of you. It is the same force that breathes your lungs, that beats your heart, that spins the earth while you sleep. So stop trying to figure it all out. Stop demanding clarity when you're being offered faith. Let the fog stay if it must. Let the questions remain unanswered. Let the journey be uncharted. For this is sacred ground. This is where the soul remembers it was never lost. This is where the ego bows to something far greater. And in that bowing, the plan begins to reveal itself. Not all at once, but in glimmers, in glimpses, in small miraculous moments that say, keep going. You are not alone. You are part of something infinite, and you are exactly where you need to be, because the universe has a bigger plan. And it's beautiful, and it's unfolding, and it's already begun. And so in this sacred stillness where your soul leans forward and listens, let us go deeper, not in understanding, but in trust. Let us not ask the universe to explain itself, but instead allow it to move through us like breath, through a flute, creating music we may not comprehend, but can always feel. For when you let go of the demand to comprehend, you make space for wonder. And wonder is the soul's native language. It knows how to behold what it cannot name. The human mind will tell you that certainty is safety, that plans are power, that logic is light. But the soul thrives in mystery. It dances in ambiguity. It does not fear what it cannot label, because it remembers that life itself is unlabeled. It was never meant to be caged in answers, but liberated in awareness. Let your awareness deepen now, not with effort, but with surrender. Not by pushing away discomfort, but by welcoming it in as a teacher, disguised in difficult robes. Everything that shows up in your life, everything, is part of the bigger plan, even the mess, even the missed callings, even the heartbreaks that hollowed you out. For the hollowing was not punishment. It was preparation. Life was not emptying you out to break you, but to make you spacious enough to hold the magnitude of the light that is coming. You were never meant to be filled with what the world offers. You were meant to be filled with what the soul reveals. And the soul reveals itself slowly like dawn. It does not burst forth with answers, but warms you quietly until suddenly you can see. And what you see is not a destination, but a transformation, a shift, a sacred turning away from fear and back toward wholeness. You begin to recognize that peace is not something life gives you when it's kind. It's something that rises in you when you stop resisting what is. The moment you stop struggling against the current, you find yourself carried. And the current has always known the way. So many of your battles have not been with life, but with your belief. that you had to control it, with a story that said you must earn your way to safety, that you must constantly prove your worth, win approval, outperform your past. But that story was never yours. It was whispered by voices that had forgotten their own divinity and passed the forgetting along. Now you are awakening. And to awaken is not to gain something new, it is to release something false, to lay down the armor, to disarm the judgment, to unclench your grip on what was never yours to carry. And in that release, the truth reveals itself. You are already enough, not because of what you've done, but because of who you are beneath all doing. You are not the storm. You are the sky that holds it. You are not the noise. You are the silence that witnesses it. You are not your story. You are the sacred space within which the story is written, erased, rewritten again. And this space, this inner temple, this is where the bigger plan is born, not out of calculation, but out of communion. It does not arrive through force. It emerges through receptivity. It is what happens when your doing ceases and your being is allowed to rise. There is nothing passive about being. It is the most powerful force in the universe. Mountains do not move by striving. They move because the earth itself breathes. Stars do not shine by effort. They shine because it is their nature. And your nature, too, is light. Not the kind that flickers with circumstance, but the kind that remains steady, even when the world forgets the Sunday. So let your light remain. Not because you try harder, but because you let go more completely. Let go of timelines. Let go of needing the next answer. Let go of the tension that comes from thinking your destiny depends on your performance. It never has. Your destiny is not performance-based, it is presence-based. It unfolds from alignment, not achievement. And alignment is simply this: the willingness to meet this moment as it is, to look upon whatever is arising, not with fear, but with faith, not with resistance, but with reverence. Even pain, even confusion, even the seasons of not knowing are holy, for they are the compost in which grace grows. You do not need to have it figured out. You only need to stay open to being figured into something larger than your mind can conceive. The universe is not waiting for your perfection. It is waiting for your participation. Not in the sense of striving, but in the sense of saying yes to what is. Saying yes to this breath. Saying yes to the fact that you are here, right now, alive, with a heart that still knows how to ache and still longs to love. That ache, that longing, is not weakness. It is the voice of the deeper plan. It is the compass. It is your guidance system, not malfunctioning, but recalibrating to a frequency you've long ignored. Begin to trust that frequency. The quiet nudges, the gentle hunches, the dreams that keep returning. The peace that arrives when you take one small step toward what lights you up inside. The path of the soul never shouts. It hums, and your job is not to demand it speak louder, but to grow quiet enough to hear it. Even now, it speaks. Even now, it points the way not toward certainty, but toward truth. Not toward control, but toward connection. Not toward who you think you should be, but toward who you were before you forgot how to listen. This listening, this holy listening, is the key to the bigger plan, because the plan is not written in the stars, it is written in your being. It is not something you chase, it is something you embody. And the more you return to yourself, the more the plan reveals itself, not in lightning bolts, but in deep, sacred clarity that needs no proof to feel real. Let that clarity carry you now. Let it remind you the universe is not asking you to believe harder. It is inviting you to remember deeper, to remember who you are, to remember what you are, to remember that the unfolding of your life is not a test, but a blessing in disguise. And as this remembering takes hold, your fear becomes softer, your breath becomes fuller, your path becomes clearer, not because the way has changed, but because your eyes have. And now the plan begins to unfold not around you, but through you, because the universe was never separate. It is you, and you are ready. And so we go on, carried now not by striving, but by surrender, carried by something far greater than ambition, something softer than logic, something ancient and eternal that has never once forgotten who you are. It is this something, this silent, boundless presence that moves through you even now, as surely as the tide moves toward the shore. You are not drifting. You are being drawn. And the current that draws you does not ask for credentials. It asks for openness. It does not measure your worth. It presumes it. For in the eyes of the divine, you are not becoming worthy. You are already the worthy one awakening. There is a rhythm to life that cannot be rushed. Just as the moon waxes and wanes, just as the tide comes in only to return again, your journey too is governed by unseen seasons. And to demand fruit in the middle of winter is to misunderstand the wisdom of the roots. You may not yet see the bloom, but that does not mean the growth is not happening. The caterpillar does not peek out from the cocoon and question its wings. It trusts the dark. It trusts the silence. And eventually, when it is time, it flies. This is the deeper plan to lead you not just to success, but to flight. Not just to moments of happiness, but to a sustained state of inner joy that no circumstance can steal. But joy is not found by pursuing pleasure. Joy arises when you become one with what is. It is the flower of presence. It is the reward of surrender. And when you finally allow yourself to stop resisting what is, joy is what remains. Not because life is perfect, but because you've remembered that you are. You are not here to master the outer world. You are here to come home to your inner one. And the world, with all its twists and turns, all its heartbreaks and surprises, is simply the mirror that reflects the state of your connection to self. When you forget who you are, the world appears hostile. But when you remember, even the chaos becomes sacred. Even the broken pieces begin to shimmer with light. Because they are not the evidence of your failure. They are the mosaic of your awakening. You are not meant to be untouched by life. You are meant to be transformed by it. The cracks in your surface are not your shame. They are the places where light escapes. And it is through those very openings that grace slips in and begins to shape you into something more spacious, more compassionate, more deeply aligned with your soul's essence. Do not fear the breaking. Fear only the hardening. For it is better to be broken and soft than whole and shut. Your softness is not your weakness. It is your strength. The seed does not erode the cliffs with anger, but with patience. The wind does not shape the trees by force, but by persistence. And so, the plan does not come crashing into your life. It arrives slowly, gracefully, through moments of surrender so quiet you might mistake them for ordinary. But nothing is ordinary when seen through the eyes of the soul. The breath is holy. The pause is sacred. The silence is the sound of God rearranging your life. And if you can stay still enough to listen, truly listen, you will hear the invitation beneath the chaos. You will feel the hand beneath the fall. You will see, perhaps for the first time, that you are not being undone, you are being rewritten in light. Let the old story burn. Let the mask fall. Let the identity you clung to for safety dissolve like morning fog. The story that says you are behind. The story that says you must earn what is already yours. The story that says you are separate, small, incomplete. These were never your truths. They were borrowed garments, inherited beliefs, voices that echoed in the chambers of your unguarded heart until they sounded like your own. But now you are awakening. And to awaken is to hear the still, unshakable truth beneath the noise. You have never been lacking. You have never been alone. You have never been forgotten by the universe, not for a single breath. There were no wrong turns, only roads that deepened your becoming. There were no wasted years, only seasons that ripened your soul. There were no delays, only divine timing preparing your wings. And now, the wings are ready. But flight does not require certainty. It requires courage. It requires stepping into the space between knowing and trusting and saying with your whole being, I don't need to see the whole plan. I only need to know that I am held, because you are. You always have been, and the holding is not conditional on your worth. It is rooted in your very existence. The universe does not ask, are you ready? It asks only, are you willing? Willing to be guided, willing to be undone, willing to be led into a life so aligned, so radiant, so rooted in love, that the person you were no longer fits inside it. This is the path of trust. Not the trust that says, everything will work out the way I want, but the deeper trust that says, however it works out, I will be held in love. That is the trust that softens your chest, calms your breath, and steadies your steps, not because it gives you control, but because it teaches you that control was never the source of safety. Love is, presence is, connection is, and you are always connected. You do not need to strive for connection. You are wired to it, like a leaf to the tree. like the tide to the moon, like light to its source. The bigger plan is not about adding more to your life. It's about stripping away everything that blocks the truth of who you are. And in that stripping, in that shedding, the soul begins to breathe again. Chatipiti danoi. Then let us walk further into the sanctuary of this unfolding. Let us continue not with haste, but with reverence. As if each word is a step deeper into the heart of the divine itself, not a place to arrive, but a presence to awaken. For when you begin to sense the plan behind the pain, the orchestration behind the silence, the grace behind the disruption, you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And begin whispering, what is this revealing in me? The plan is not about reaching a pinnacle. It is about remembering your origin, not where you were born, but where your essence was breathed from. Before the world gave you a name, before the mind built its walls, before your heart knew the ache of longing, you were whole. You were luminous. You were already held in a pattern of love that cannot be seen by the eyes, but can be known by the soul. And now, this plan, this bigger plan, is gently and sometimes painfully leading you back to that remembrance. Like water carving canyons, not in an instant, but over centuries, the divine is shaping you. Every moment of stillness, every stretch of uncertainty, every ending you didn't expect is part of that slow, sacred carving. It may feel like emptiness, but it is really spaciousness, space being made for what is to come, space being cleared for what your smaller self could not imagine. Let the space remain empty if it must. Do not rush to fill it with substitutes for meaning. Do not grasp at distractions that quiet the ache but numb the soul. Let the space speak to you. Let it echo. Let it teach you what fullness really means, not the kind that comes from having more, but the kind that comes from needing less. For the truth is, you are not here to be filled up by the world. You are here to overflow from within. This plan, then, is not just about direction, it is about depth. It is not leading you toward a destination, but inward, where the answers have always waited in stillness. The world taught you to climb, to achieve, to strive towards significance. But the soul invites you to sink, to listen, to descend into the sacred quiet where your truest voice is not spoken, but known. And when you touch that voice, that still point within you that neither rushes nor fears, something shifts. You no longer beg life to be different. You become different in how you meet life. You no longer need the storm to stop. You simply remember you are not the storm. And in that remembering, the storm loses its power to shake you. You begin to see that every delay was a divine pause. Every no was a redirection toward your greater yes. Every heartbreak was a hidden hand closing a door you didn't know would lead you away from yourself. You weren't being tested, you were being tenderized. And now, with your defenses softened and your heart more open than you ever thought possible, you are finally available to the bigger plan, not just conceptually, but viscerally. You can feel it now, can't you? The way life has not been cruel, but precise. The way your breakdowns led you to deeper ground. The way even your confusion was part of a curriculum only love could design. And now that you are no longer clinging to the map, the compass begins to pulse. A quiet knowing, a subtle pull, a sacred direction that doesn't tell you the destination, but assures you the journey is holy. Walk that path. Let it be undefined. Let it be wild. Let it be yours. This is not the time for certainty. It is the time for trust. Not trust in your plans, but in your path. Not trust in what you see, but in what you sense. Not trust in what you understand, but in the presence that understands you fully and has from the very beginning. The bigger plan is not always visible, but it is always at work. In the delays, in the detours, in the door that slams shut and the one that hasn't opened yet. It is not ignoring you. It is preparing you for a life not built on performance, but on presence. A life not shaped by fear, but by alignment. A life not dictated by the ego's cravings, but by the soul's knowing. And that knowing, it is rising now, like dawn, like truth, like light remembered after a long night. You are not too late. You are not off track. You are not forgotten. You are arriving into the very place the universe intended for you all along. Then let us arrive not with finality, but with fulfillment. Let us draw breath into the closing arc of this sacred unfolding, not as an end, but as the gentle return home. Because the bigger plan was never about getting somewhere. It was always about remembering where you've always belonged. There is no grand finish in the eyes of the universe. No final bow, no curtain call, no applause required. Only presence. Only the deep, still knowing that you have walked the winding road of your life with courage, with softness, with the sacred ache of awakening echoing in your chest like a holy bell. And now, you stand here not because you forced the path, but because you followed the pull. There were days you questioned if you'd ever arrive, nights you felt forsaken, cast aside, broken by the weight of unanswered prayers. But the prayers were not denied, they were translated. Answered in a language only the soul understands. Delay that shaped strength, loss that opened love, silence that ripened listening. And now, the pieces begin to make sense. Not all of them, not clearly, but enough. Enough to bow your head not in defeat, but in reverence. Enough to see that nothing was wasted, not the pain, not the pause, not the paths that ended without warning. All of it was used. All of it was part of the choreography of becoming. You did not need to be the strongest. You only needed to be willing. Willing to let life soften you where it hurt. Willing to let truth replace illusion. Willing to keep showing up, not polished, not perfect, but open. And you did. You showed up to the sacred work of becoming more real. You let go of maps that no longer fit your spirit. You shed identities that no longer felt like home. You laid down your illusions of control and picked up something far more powerful, surrender. And in that surrender, something ancient was restored. Not given to you, revealed. The strength that endures without needing to harden. The clarity that arrives without needing to shout. The love that pulses through your very being, asking for nothing but to be expressed. This is what the plan was always guiding you toward. Not toward a better version of who you were, but toward the truest, most luminous expression of who you already are. And now you begin to see it. Your life not as a problem to solve, but as a poem unfolding. Each moment, each breath, each heartbreak, and healing a verse in the great hymn of your becoming. There are no wasted stanzas. Even the pauses between the lines are holy. Even the silence is part of the song. Let that song rise now not in noise, but in resonance. Let your presence become your praise. Let your breath become your offering. Let your life become the cathedral where the divine finds expression in the most human form. Through you. You do not need to preach. You do not need to perform. You only need to be. In being fully, freely, fearlessly, you fulfill the plan. Not by doing something extraordinary, but by allowing the extraordinary to move through you in ordinary ways, in kindness and authenticity. In truth, that doesn't try to convince, but simply radiates. And as you radiate, you begin to see the full circle. You see that the very places you once wished to escape were where your soul was being refined. You see that what you once thought were detours were the most direct paths back to yourself. You see that the universe never abandoned you, it walked with you. As you in every step, every breath, every quiet decision to trust one more time. This is the bigger plan. Not written in the stars, but written in your surrender. Not declared by fate, but whispered through faith. Not carved in stone, but unfolding in breath. And now that you see, now that you remember, you can rest. Not in passivity, but in peace. The kind of peace that comes not from answers, but from alignment. The kind that doesn't require certainty, because it stands on truth. The kind that doesn't need proof, because it knows. You know now, you know that you were never waiting for a plan to appear. You were waiting to become who could walk it. And you are, you will. There is nothing more to earn, nothing more to chase, nothing more to become. Only this sacred truth to live. The universe has a bigger plan. And that plan is you. There is a voice within you, older than time, softer than wind, more constant than the turning of the earth. It does not shout. It does not argue. It does not persuade with logic or clamor for attention in the crowded chambers of your mind. It waits patiently, reverently for the moment you are still enough to hear it. That voice is your soul, and it is ready to lead. From the first breath you ever took, long before you had a name, a story, a history, there was something within you that knew the way. Something not made of flesh or bone, not forged in fear or ambition, but birthed from the very source of all life. That something, that essence, has never left you. Though you have wandered, though you have worn masks to feel safe, though you have grasped for answers in places that could never give them, the soul has remained unchanging and untouched. We live in a world of noise, a world that worships speed and praises achievement, a world that tells you who you are is not enough, not yet, not until you earn more, do more, become more. But let me tell you this, the soul does not speak in the language of not enough. The soul does not wait for your resume or your approval ratings. The soul whispers one thing over and over again, no matter how many times you forget. You are already it. You are already home. When you let the soul lead, you no longer chase life, you align with it. You stop pushing against the river and start floating in its sacred current. You no longer force your way into rooms you think will prove your worth. You walk in knowing that your presence is enough to light the room itself. And yes, the mind will resist. The ego, forged in the fires of conditioning and fear, will cry out. It will beg for certainty, for plans, for control. But the soul lives in a different realm. It is fluent in trust. It does not need maps because it remembers the terrain. It does not need to see the full staircase because it is the step. Rumi said, try to be like the moon in the sky. It doesn't run around looking for attention. It just shines. Your soul is like that moon, radiant, not because it tries, but because it allows. You don't need to become spiritual. You already are. You don't need to find your purpose. You are your purpose. And the more you release the story of who you think you need to be, the more clearly the soul steps forward and says, this is who you have always been. Let your soul lead when fear grips your chest and says you're not ready. Let your soul lead when the world tells you your dreams are too big, your heart too tender. Let your soul lead when grief brings you to your knees and you can't remember the way forward. Because the soul never forgets the path. It walks with you, even when you've lost your faith, even when all you can offer is a single breath in the dark. There is a kind of strength the world cannot measure, a strength that does not harden, but softens, that does not dominate, but surrenders. When you let your soul lead, your power becomes rooted, not loud. Your truth becomes simple, not performative. Your life becomes not a performance, but a prayer. You do not need to be fearless to follow your soul. You only need to be willing. Willing to pause, willing to listen, willing to say yes to what you cannot yet see, but deeply feel. That feeling is the compass. That inner tug, that quiet knowing it is not a fantasy. It is the truest voice you'll ever know. And when you follow that voice, when you stop resisting the pull toward authenticity, life meets you differently. It no longer tests you, it dances with you. Synchronicities appear, doors open, not because you fought your way through, but because your energy became an invitation. This is not magic, it is alignment. This is not luck, it is truth remembered. This is not delusion, it is reality beneath the illusion. You were not created to live from your wounds. You were not born to build your life around fear. You came here to express something sacred, something no one else can replicate. Your soul's frequency, your unique essence, your unrepeatable light. And when you live from that essence, you become the healing, not by fixing others, not by preaching truth, but simply by being a mirror to remind others of who they are. You become the safe place, the quiet presence, the soft smile that says it's okay to be real here. The soul does not demand, it invites. The soul does not control, it collaborates. The soul does not cling, it trusts. And trust, my beloved, is the portal. When you trust your soul more than the opinions of others, you become free. When you trust your soul more than the fear in your head, you become powerful. When you trust your soul more than the story of your past, you become whole. There is nothing more needed. No more proving, no more chasing, no more exhausting yourself trying to be enough for a world that doesn't know how to measure true worth. You are already the mountain, already the flame, already the sacred, walking in human skin. Let your soul lead. Let it rise in you like dawn after a long night. Let it shape your choices, guide your relationships, direct your work, and bathe your days in meaning. Let it speak even when the world tries to silence it. Let it dance even when your heart is broken. Let it be the rhythm that moves your feet, the wind that carries your prayers, the silence that sings louder than any voice. And if ever you forget, and you will forgive yourself, return again, come back home. The soul never leaves. It simply waits in stillness, in love, in light. because you, my dear, are not a seeker. You are a rememberer. And now, it's time to remember who's been leading you all along. There is a wisdom buried beneath your thoughts that has never been touched by fear, never been shaped by trauma, never been silenced by shame. It is the eternal part of you, the part that witnessed your first breath and will remain long after the story of this lifetime is complete. This wisdom is not earned through striving. It does not arrive with titles or achievements. It comes alive the moment you stop trying to be anything and allow yourself to be everything you already are. It speaks not in words, but in knowing, not in volume, but in stillness. And every time you turn inward, every time you dare to slow down and feel what is really here, you come closer to it. You don't need to understand it with your mind. You only need to feel its presence with your being. That presence is the compass. That presence is the voice of your soul. And when the soul leads, life no longer feels like a race against time. It becomes a sacred unfolding. You stop chasing moments and begin inhabiting them. You stop performing and begin revealing. There is no mask needed here, no script to memorize, no role to impress the crowd. When your soul is at the helm, you live not to be seen, but to see, not to accumulate, but to appreciate, not to conquer, but to connect. The soul cares little for the illusions of hierarchy. It does not calculate worth by numbers, applause, or perfection. It simply asks, are you present? And when your answer is yes, even if just for a breath, you step into the dimension of the eternal, a dimension where peace is not postponed, where joy is not conditional, where love is not withheld. There will be moments when your mind will resist this softness, when the old programming of survival will rise, urging you to harden, to guard, to hustle. But this is where you pause. This is where you breathe. This is where you say, not this time. Because now you know the difference between protection and presence, between shrinking and surrendering, between hiding and healing. Let your soul lead you through the fire, not to escape the flames, but to remember that you were never truly burnable. Only the illusions burn. Only the masks melt. Only what is not real can be destroyed. What you are, what you have always been, is indestructible, unnameable, holy. There is no map for this journey because the terrain is within you, and within you is every mountain, every river, every sky that ever was. You are not a traveler on earth. You are earth itself, becoming conscious. You are not seeking direction. You are remembering your rhythm. And when you move in that rhythm, you do not fear the unknown. You welcome it. You do not resist the darkness. You bless it. Because the soul does not need certainty. It only needs truth. And truth does not arrive in grand revelations. It arrives in quiet moments of radical honesty. When you admit to yourself, I've been following the noise, and I'm ready to follow the knowing. This knowing is not the voice of your fear. It is not the echo of your past. It is not the projection of your wounds. It is the pulse of something sacred, living in your belly, your bones, your breath. It is the whisper that says, this is who you are even when you forget. This is who you are even when you fall. The soul does not abandon you when you make mistakes. It does not turn away when you grieve. It does not scold you when you're lost. It simply waits, arms open, eyes soft, saying, come home. And coming home does not mean becoming perfect. It means becoming real, becoming raw, becoming honest enough to admit that you've been trying to do it all alone, and you're ready to be led by something greater than your ego. When the soul leads, your life becomes a prayer. Not the kind spoken in temples, but the kind woven into every act of presence. Washing the dishes becomes devotion. Listening deeply becomes worship. Walking barefoot in the grass becomes communion, because you are no longer waiting for heaven. You are allowing it to rise through you. Heaven is not a place. It is a state of being, accessible in every breath, every touch, every gaze that comes from presence. When the soul leads, you stop waiting to be chosen. You choose yourself. You stop waiting to be saved. You remember you were never lost. You stop waiting for the perfect moment. You realize this moment is already perfect, simply because it is here and you are in it. Keep listening. Keep softening. Keep returning. Your soul is not in a rush. It has waited lifetimes for you to remember. It rejoices not in your success, but in your surrender. It is not impressed by what you achieve. It is moved by what you allow. And what it longs for most is not your greatness, but your gentleness. Not your performance, but your presence. Not your striving, but your being. The world does not need another polished persona. It needs souls who are willing to live unmasked, to speak from the heart, to walk with bare feet and open palms, trusting the earth to hold them. You are one of those souls, and the time is now. Let your soul lead. There comes a moment in every awakening soul when silence no longer feels like absence but presence, when you no longer see emptiness as something to be filled, but as a sacred space to be honored. The noise that once defined your days, the judgments, the striving, the endless comparisons, begins to dissolve, and in its place, a deeper rhythm emerges. One not dictated by the ticking of clocks or the measures of success, but by the gentle beating of truth in your chest. That truth does not demand to be proven. It simply asks to be lived. Not tomorrow, not when it's convenient, but now. Because now is the only time your soul understands. It does not wait for better circumstances. It is ready in this very breath. When you no longer fear the quiet, you begin to hear life differently. A leaf falling from a tree becomes a revelation. The sound of rain against a window becomes a teacher. Even your own breath becomes a hymn, a reminder that life is not something to survive, but to feel. And in that feeling, you rediscover yourself. Not as a role, not as an identity, but as an awareness watching it all. Watching thoughts rise and pass, watching feelings come and go, watching the world spin, not from the chaos of reaction, but from the calm of remembrance. The soul does not resist life, it dances with it. It meets joy with gratitude and sorrow with grace. It holds space for both without needing to escape either. To let your soul lead is to walk with reverence, not with haste, but with intention, not with the need to arrive, but with the presence to truly witness the journey. It means you no longer chase experiences to validate your worth. You live them as offerings of the moment. And when you live this way, your life begins to expand, not outward into acquisition, but inward into depth. Relationships deepen not because you say more, but because you listen with your whole being. Work becomes sacred not because of its outcome, but because of the love infused into each gesture. Even rest becomes an act of courage, because in a world addicted to motion, to be still is to be revolutionary. Do not be afraid of the pauses. Do not rush to fill the empty spaces, for it is in those spaces that the soul breathes. It is in those moments of still surrender that you are reintroduced to the divine choreography of life. You begin to notice that the universe has always been in conversation with you, not through shouts, but through whispers. Not through signs carved in stone, but through the subtle nudge, the quiet knowing, the sense that something beyond logic is guiding your steps. And when you trust that guidance, you move not with certainty, but with peace. Because peace does not come from knowing all the answers. It comes from knowing that even without answers, you are still held. The soul does not seek control. It seeks communion. It longs not to master the world, but to merge with its flow. This is not passivity. It is power. The kind of power that no one can give you and no one can take away. The kind of power that arises not from dominance, but from authenticity. When you stand in that power, you don't need to convince anyone of your worth. You embody it. You don't need to chase validation. You become the source of it. And in this embodiment, something extraordinary happens. You begin to resonate. Your energy becomes clear, steady, magnetic. Not because you are trying, but because you are aligned. And alignment is irresistible. It draws the right people, the right opportunities, the right unfolding, not by force, but by frequency. Let this be the day you stop bargaining with life. Let this be the moment you lay down the mask of perfection and pick up the mirror of presence. You do not need to perform to be loved. You do not need to earn your place at the table. You were invited here by something eternal. And that invitation was not based on merit. It was based on truth. The truth that your existence in and of itself is enough. The truth that your soul, without any embellishment, is already holy. And the more you live from that holiness, not as a concept, but as a lived reality, the more you illuminate the path, not only for yourself, but for everyone you encounter. This is not about escaping the world. It is about meeting it more fully, more deeply, more honestly. It is about bringing the totality of who you are, the wounded parts, the sacred parts, the messy and the magnificent, and saying, this too is worthy of love. When your soul leads, you no longer divide yourself into acceptable and unacceptable. You become whole. You become complete not because the world tells you so, but because your own being radiates it. And that completeness is not the end of your journey, it is the beginning of a new one. A journey not of becoming, but of embodying. A journey where the destination is not out there, but in the depth of each moment, live from truth. And so, walk gently, but with conviction. Speak softly, but with clarity. Love boldly, but without condition. Let your life become a reflection of the stillness within you. Let every choice be a testimony that you remember who you are. Not a name, not a role, not a story, but a soul free, infinite, and full of light. There is a kind of remembering that does not come in words, but in waves. Waves that crash quietly against the inner shore of your awareness, unearthing fragments of truth you forgot you ever knew. This is the remembering of your divine origin, the remembering that precedes thought and bypasses language. It is not taught. It is not inherited. It is revealed in the moment you stop pretending to be anything less than infinite. The world will try to reduce you, to compress the immensity of your spirit into something measurable, manageable, marketable, but your soul cannot be domesticated. It cannot be packaged. It cannot be made small. And when you allow it to lead, you shatter the illusion that your value is found in external validation. You return to the sacred, knowing that your very presence is a form of prayer. You see, the soul does not rush. It does not grasp. It does not bargain. It simply is. It unfolds petal by petal, like a lotus rising from the mud, untouched by the water that surrounds it. And when you let it guide you, your life becomes less about direction and more about depth. Less about getting there and more about being here. You begin to feel the pulse of eternity in everyday moments, in the way sunlight touches your face, in the rhythm of your breathing, in the way your hand meets another's not to fix them, but to feel them. And when you live this way, the ordinary becomes luminous. What once felt mundane becomes miraculous, because you are no longer seeing through the eyes of expectation, but through the lens of wonder. Letting your soul lead does not mean your path will be without challenge. It means you will face the challenge without abandoning yourself. It means that when fear comes, you do not run, you sit with it. You breathe into it, you ask it what it came to teach you, and you listen, not with judgment, but with curiosity. And in that space, you find something the world rarely teaches you to value: presence. Not the kind of presence that performs or impresses, but the kind that heals simply by being there. This presence is the birthplace of transformation, because nothing truly changes until it is first accepted. Nothing truly heals until it is first held. And the soul, above all else, knows how to hold. There is nothing in you that is unworthy of love. Nothing. Not the parts you hide, not the shadows you suppress, not the wounds you've tried to bury beneath layers of performance. The soul does not ask you to be different. It asks you to be honest. Honest about what you feel, honest about what you long for, honest about the masks you're tired of wearing. And in that honesty, something profound happens. You soften, not in weakness, but in power. The power of truth, the power of authenticity, the power of no longer needing to pretend. And in that softness, life begins to meet you differently. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. You begin to make decisions not from scarcity, but from wholeness. You speak not to impress, but to express. You give not to be liked, but because love is who you are. And from that place, every interaction becomes sacred. Every step becomes a ceremony. Every breath becomes a bridge between the seen and the unseen. There is no separation. The divine is not elsewhere. It is here in your fingers, in your gaze, in the way you smile when no one is watching. And when you embody that truth, you become a sanctuary in a world of noise. Not because you have all the answers, but because you are willing to be real in a world built on illusion. Let your soul lead through the storms. Let it lead when the night feels endless and the path ahead disappears in darkness. The soul does not need light to see. It is the light. It does not need certainty to move forward. It trusts the next step will appear the moment you take it. And when you walk this way, guided not by fear, but by faith, you begin to experience a freedom the world cannot offer. A freedom not defined by escape, but by embodiment. You no longer need to run from anything, because you are no longer afraid to feel everything. You no longer need to protect your heart because your heart has become the source of your power. And in this sacred way of living, something ancient stirs within you, a recognition, a remembrance, a gentle knowing that says, I have been here before. I have walked this path in other forms and other times. And I chose this life, this body, this moment, because something in me knew that now was the time to awaken. Now was the time to let go of the stories of smallness. Now was the time to rise not in resistance, but in resonance, not in battle, but in being. And so you rise, not to stand above others, but to stand fully within yourself, to claim your space, to honor your rhythm, to walk this earth as though your presence is sacred, because it is. And so you rise not suddenly, not with fanfare, but like dawn breaks over a sleeping world, slow and sure and undeniable. You rise through the cracks of your own resistance, through the ruins of who you thought you had to be, through the layers of silence that once kept you safe but now ask to be shed. You do not need to fight for your place. You are the place. You are the still point around which the dance of life moves. You are not becoming anything new. You are dissolving what is false so that the truth may be felt more clearly. And that truth is not complex. It is simple, radiant, immediate. It says only this: you belong here, now, as you are. To let your soul lead is to relinquish your grip on the outcome and fall in love with the presence of the process. It is to see your own healing not as a project to complete, but as a song to sing with tenderness and awe. You stop measuring your worth by how fast you grow and begin honoring the sacredness of how deeply you feel. You stop asking, am I doing it right? And start asking, am I doing it from love? Because love is not a destination, it is not a reward, it is the atmosphere your soul breathes, the light it radiates, the ground it walks upon. And when you begin to see yourself not as separate from that love, but as a living extension of it, you no longer ask the world to reflect your value. You embody it. And still, the world may misunderstand. It may question your softness. It may label your stillness as laziness, your sensitivity as weakness, your refusal to perform as rebellion. But when your soul leads, you no longer adjust your essence to fit into spaces that diminish you. You no longer contort your truth to earn approval. You realize that no amount of shrinking will ever make you feel safe. True safety is not found in conformity, it is found in authenticity. It is found in waking each day and choosing to be aligned rather than accepted. And in that choice, you rediscover your sovereignty not as a shield, but as a light. A quiet radiance that says, I trust who I am, even when others do not understand. You begin to see the divine not just in temples or texts, but in the eyes of strangers, in the rustle of leaves, in the aching beauty of being fully awake in a world that constantly invites you to numb. You stop outsourcing your authority and reclaim your inner altar. You stop waiting for permission and realize you are the answer to the prayer you've been whispering in the dark. Not because you are without flaw, but because you are with truth. And truth is not always comfortable, but it is always liberating. It may burn away what no longer serves you. It may dismantle the structures that were built to contain you. But what remains, what always remains, is the core of you that cannot be touched by fear, cannot be broken by circumstance, cannot be forgotten by the source that dreamed you into existence. There is a place within you that remembers the stars, a place that has never doubted your worth, never questioned your path, never lost faith in the unfolding. When you sink into that place, when you let it rise and speak and breathe through you, your life becomes a sacred offering, not of perfection, but of presence. You stop performing for a future that may never arrive and start inhabiting the miracle that is already here. And as you do, you notice something shifting not outside, but within. A softening, a slowing, a quiet, unshakable sense that you no longer need to grasp for the divine because you are it. You begin to trust your yes, even when it defies logic. You begin to honor your no, even when it disappoints others. You begin to see boundaries not as walls, but as declarations of self-respect. And every time you choose alignment over approval, truth over comfort, love over fear, your soul breathes easier. It expands, it sings, because it was never here to play small, it was never here to please everyone, it was never here to win a game built on falsehood. It came to awaken, to remember, to love so deeply that even the most guarded parts of you begin to feel safe enough to emerge. This is what it means to be led by the soul, not to escape the world, but to transfigure it, to walk through it with eyes wide open and a heart unguarded, to hold the ache and the awe in the same breath, to bless the questions without needing all the answers, to look at your reflection not with critique, but with reverence and whisper, I remember now, I remember what I am. And so, here you are, still open bare, not broken, but broken open, not lost, but finally, blessedly found. Found not in the eyes of others, not in the grasp of success, not in the fleeting validation of being needed, but found in the quiet sanctuary of your own being. The soul did not need to be discovered. It only asked to be remembered. It waded through the noise, through the striving, through the relentless pretending. And now, here in this moment of stillness, of unguarded breath, it steps forward not with fireworks, but with a whisper that shakes the very ground of who you thought you were. You are home. Not the home with walls and locks and lights left on for someone else's return. Not the home built on borrowed expectations and stitched together identities, but the eternal home, the one that cannot be left, cannot be burned down, cannot be taken from you. Because it is you. You are the home, the sanctuary, the altar, the eternal flame. You are not the seeker, you are the source. Not the one wandering through life to find God, but the place where God wakes up and remembers its own reflection in human form. And in this holy return, you no longer walk with the urgency of someone trying to arrive. You walk with the grace of someone who knows they are already there. You speak less to be understood and more to simply share the overflow of your presence. You no longer ask life to make sense, you let it be sacred. Every step, every sigh, every sorrow becomes infused with meaning, not because you impose it, but because your awareness allows it. You stop demanding clarity from the universe and start offering your trust to it. You surrender not in defeat, but in devotion. When you let your soul lead, you become soft without collapsing. You become open without being broken. You become powerful without needing control. The world may not always recognize this kind of strength, but the soul does not ask to be seen. It asks to be lived. And when it is lived, everything around you begins to shift. Not because you have imposed change, but because you have become a frequency of truth so undeniable, it reorganizes the field around you. Others feel it. They may not know what it is, but they feel safer in your presence. They feel less need to pretend. They remember something in themselves just by being near you. That is your legacy, not in what you accomplish, but in how you exist. Not in what you build, but in what you become. Not in the noise you make, but in the peace you radiate. You are not here to fix the world. You are here to embody a world that needs no fixing. A world where love is not a transaction, but a truth. A world where worth is not earned, but intrinsic. A world where the soul leads and the mind serves not the other way around. And as you embody that, you become the permission others have been waiting for. You become the reminder that freedom is not a reward. It is a birthright. That joy is not the end of struggle. It is the presence of grace. That wholeness is not a destination. It is the foundation from which everything sacred begins. So take one more breath, not to reach for something, but to return, to feel the life already pulsing through your veins, to honor the divine intelligence that knows how to beat your heart, to heal your wounds, to guide your path even when you can't see it. Let the breath be your anchor. Let the stillness be your teacher. Let the soul be your compass. And if ever you forget, and you will return again, not with shame, but with softness, not with guilt, but with gentleness. The soul never punishes forgetting. It simply waits for remembering. And now you remember. You are not just a part of the universe. You are the entire symphony played in a single note. You are not a mistake wrapped in skin. You are a miracle draped in human form. You are not here to be small, to blend, to apologize. You are here to radiate, to awaken, to love so fully that even your silence heals. Let your life be that love. Let your soul lead. And let the world be changed one breath, one truth, one awakening heart at a time.